This is the Black Information Network Daily Podcast, and I'm your host, Ramses Ja. And sometimes the amount of stories that make their way to us means that we simply can't cover everything that comes our way. But from time to time, a story just stays with me, and I feel compelled to share it with you and give you my thoughts. And now, one more thing. On August 9th in Glendale, Arizona, Q and I were able to go to what was stated to be the largest political rally in the history of Arizona politics. And the headliner of this political rally was none other than Kamala Harris. Q and I have a funny story about getting out to hang out with Kamala Harris and to, kind of engage in her campaign to one degree or another.
That is not a funny story.
Well, in any event, we ultimately made it out to this event, and we ended up, I think that we knew what made Kamala Harris's campaign so special. I mean, how could you not? If you're listening to this show, how could you not? Even if you're not a supporter of Kamala Harris, you can recognize how this moment has to be significant to some people. So we were kind of operating from that space, but as I mentioned, we had a chance to go into the political arena and interact with other folks who were really excited about politics again, which for a long time, excitement had been missing from the political arena for the majority of the country, let's be honest. And we got a chance to hear these great speakers, these huge names in politics, these great leaders, these thinkers share their thoughts on the stage about what they thought the future of the country should look like, and discuss the potential that this country holds for all of her citizens. And it was energizing. It was a special event. But Q and I, we've spent so much time in Arizona that we knew a lot of people in the crowd, and people were taking pictures of us. We were kind of propped up prominently in the press pit. And, there were friendly faces across the room, people that we had worked with, people that supported, obviously, this show and Civic Cypher. But behind the stage, there was a group of beautiful young ladies wearing pink and green.
It was a very, very serious matter.
Yes.
You already know.
And as
serious.
We were, no lie there. But as we were kind of taking the room in, we noticed some friendly faces behind the stage. And these are faces that you may have seen on the news, because these are the folks behind Kamala Harris as she delivered her statements about the future of this country. Again, the country's promise to her citizens and what she plans on bringing to the political arena as president. And those faces behind her were some people that we know. To say we know them well, it would be kind of an understatement. We've known you guys for decades. And you do good work in this community. You're good people. You're people that people look up to. You are Black women, and you are AKAs. Mm-hmm. And so that pink and green and all the skiwis in the room, it was a very special event, right? And I want to get to that because I definitely want to talk about the importance of the AKAs nationally, but certainly in this city, because that's kind of been my introduction to the Divine Nine. Is that yeah? I didn't pledge when I went to college. I didn't go to an HBCU, so I didn't have that experience. So most of my experience with that connectivity I've gained through you two and Dr. Westenberg, and that's really the extent of it. But I feel like a brother to my sisters, and I have felt that way for some time. So what we're going to do is have a little bit of a recap of that event. And we're also going to discuss the support of Black women for Kamala Harris. We're going to talk about some of the attacks and how that feels, because that's got to feel really strange in a moment when you've spent so much time being poured into. At least this is what I hope that your experience has been, being poured into by Black men, especially seeing Black women cry in the streets over their dead sons after police shootings and this, that, and the other, after these pushes to listen to Black women, to empower Black women, to bet on Black women. And those attacks online, how do they feel in this new political, chapter? And just kind of get your thoughts. So I go by the name Ramses Ja.
I go by the name Q Ward sometimes. Sometimes my mom gets upset and names that you guys didn't know were on my birth certificate come out because she has a point to make. To say that it was energizing, as you said, about our friendship would be an undersell.
Yeah.
And I want to make it a point to refer to her as Vice President Kamala Harris, because the mainstream media sure does keep putting that president word in front of the other guy's name.
Sure, yeah.
And I'm going to pay her at least as much respect as they pay him. But I mean, you said it, man. You don't remember how loved you are, how much community you have, until you go outside. We spend a lot of time in the studio, and then with our kids, and that's kind of, for me, that's kind of it, because I don't DJ prominently anymore. My brother is still rocking turntables and microphones, and turning the city up. But
I do my thing.
For me, to our sisters that are present with us today, these are two women that I don't have to wonder if they love me or not. I know for sure, and that I loved in return. But I am not outside like I used to be, so I don't get to see them as much. And as soon as I saw Brandy, I pulled my phone out. And she answered the phone and said, "You must see me." It's like she knew I was there. She felt the force. But Ramses and I have stated before that oftentimes doing a radio show in a studio, it feels like it's just us sometimes, dealing with these sometimes very challenging, very difficult, very heavy stories. And we finally had a story that wasn't heavy, that wasn't difficult, that wasn't sad. And it also wasn't just us. And walking into that arena, and not just the amount of people that we saw, but who we saw. I called Brandy, Dr. Westerberg called you. It was like a family reunion happening in real time. And all of us there for a collective purpose, all of us energized, all of us full of joy and happiness. And it seemed to be the connective tissue for every person present. You saw me taking pictures. I would find people standing by themselves, little kids, older women, just dancing and just in the spirit, really, like church service.
Excited.
And I would ask, I would wave them down, "Do you mind if I take your picture?" Because I just wanted to capture it, especially when I was taking pictures of kids. I wanted to make sure that their parents, hey, I'm not a creep. I'm just
trying to capture the moment.
I'm overcome with joy, and seeing you and yours overcome with joy is doing something for me. And every person whose attention that I got posed for me, so they were feeling it too. So it was an incredible experience. But I can't imagine what the experience is like for my sisters, because that was a sister on that stage. That was a queen on that stage. That's a different feeling when you look up there and you see you. So I think that was important that you all were able to make some time for us, because I think your perspective will mean a lot to not just us, but our listeners as well.
Well, as you know, we are joined in the studio by two of our friends. I will introduce them. The first one on our first mic, she goes by the name of Talay Hornback. And Talay and I, and Brandy Irvin too, because this is kind of the same story.
Yeah.
But yeah, we go back, call it 20 years.
Crazy, but
Yeah,
that's accurate.
yeah.
Crazy
And-
that that's true for all of us.
Yeah.
I got 20 years in with y'all too. That's so incredible.
But just in brief, we met when we all got into radio initially. And funny how
Even before that,
Yeah?
Yeah, because I met you and Kevin like summer of freshman year in college.
Wow.
You
One
did.
time for Kev.
Oh,
Oh,
man.
I'm all using his government name.
That's
but yeah.
right. Yeah. Okay, you're right. Well,
Yeah.
well, the point is that from that era, we have gone through the channels, the pathways of like kind of entertainment and hip hop and all that sort of stuff, like, you know, radio, that sort of thing. And then our, maybe we'll call it ministry, whatever word we're going to use, has evolved to be more people oriented. And yours in particular, both of you, is through largely through endeavors sponsored by Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And you, based on what I've seen, this isn't something that you two are just like affiliated with because it's cool. It's not something that you're sometimesy about. This is like real life. And you know, Q and I, we say something on this show and on Civic Cypher as well, and it bears repeating as often as we have a microphone and an audience, but we feel that, actually, you know what, I don't even want to say it. Q, you want to say it?
I was about to say,
Go ahead, say it.
this is something that we say anytime anybody's listening, not just on the show, not just on the radio.
In real life.
Anytime we're speaking and we notice more than one person stopped talking to listen to us, we remind them and we say with the fullness of our chest that the closest thing on this earth to God is a black woman. And we repeat that often, and we make sure that we look in people's eyes when we say it so they know that we mean that.
Absolutely.
And in our literary endeavors,
Yeah.
we have dedicated an entire chapter to the idea,
To the why.
that you should listen to, believe in, support, protect, stand up for, lift up black women.
So when something like that comes from witnessing people like you. Now we come from the same like age group, so to speak.
I'm old and dusty.
Well, I mean,
Y'all
We all from
are
the
young
same
and
peer
beautiful.
Group.
yeah, peer group. There you go.
Same generation.
Okay, we'll go with that.
Word.
But there's something to the leadership that I've noticed from the Alpha Kappa Alphas that, again, is consistent, it's intentional, it's effective, it is visible. And, you know, when I think of those people, obviously Dr. Kamala Westenberg, who's been on the show a number of times, is the person that kind of introduced me to that institution. But in terms of like execution, in terms of who can I call to do this show, it's you two. And I know that was a long introduction, but I feel like it's well warranted, and I stand by it, because for people who are a number of things, first off, black women. Second of all, AKAs. Americans, Arizonans, and people who often find themselves in conversations where the optics illuminate systemic disadvantages. You too are uniquely positioned to discuss Kamala Harris's campaign and what that means for black women. But again, some of the pushback that we've seen, indeed, from even black people online, mostly black men, but black women as well, right? So let's get into the nuts and bolts of this now. The first thing I want to ask is, there was a post that you put up, Randy, and this post was, I think it kind of encapsulates a lot of what a lot of people were feeling. So I'm going to read the post for our listeners, and I want you to kind of talk us through where you were mentally when you drafted this and what it meant, if there's any more context you want to provide to it. So the post goes, I support Kamala not because she's black, not because she's a woman, not because she's my soror, but because I support a safe and healthy country. I support a country where all Americans actually have the same rights and freedoms. The alternative is terrifying. One of the things I didn't mention before I let you go is that Kamala Harris is an AKA. All right. Okay. So talk us through this post and just kind of bring us into your world.
So first, I just want to give a disclaimer that, my views are my own and do not reflect Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated whatsoever. We do share the same views as far as voter registration and mobilization. However, these views are my own. But in that space, after the rally, I was kind of seeing some feedback, not just from that rally, but from other rallies that have taken place over that week, because she's been jet setting, to say the least, through the swing states. And, and I'm reading the comments on video posts, and it's like, oh, you're just people saying it to the masses, like, oh, you all are just supporting her because she's black. You all are just supporting her. Are you all in the Divine Nine are just supporting her because she's an AKA? And you all are just supporting her because she's a woman, and all these things. It's like, I was getting so frustrated with people like minimizing her to those things, as if her credentials didn't matter. Like she is all of those things, but she's so much more. And I wanted people to know from my perspective that I'm not just blindly supporting a candidate. This is someone who I'm excited to support because I know what she stands for. She's one of the most qualified candidates that we've probably ever had. I'm just gonna put it out there. So I wanted to make clear that she shouldn't be minimized to those characteristics, those features, those smaller. I mean, being a black woman is a grand thing, but just minimizing her support to those things and not what she stands for, not what she stands to accomplish. And in that moment, I was like, look, this is what it is. I was also letting it be known, like, which side I'm standing on.
Yeah.
So there's no, there's no misunderstanding of where I stand with my views, and what I'm looking for in this country, because, we've witnessed some terrifying things, and unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that don't find it terrifying, which is concerning, because especially with many of us being descendants of slavery and not finding some of the rhetoric that's been out there extremely terrifying. So that was where I ended with is how the alternative would be terrifying, and we'd be going back to times that our people have fought hard and true to get us to this point. And we could be going so far back, and that is just, I can't even imagine it.
Can I ask you another question? Do you remember Ben Carson when he had his bid for the presidency? Did you support Ben Carson in his bid for the presidency? You can answer honestly.
I mean, it was, I feel like in that situation, it was kind of.
How about this? Did you support Kanye when he was running for president?
Oh, absolutely not.
Okay. Well, how about let's talk about someone who's not black, because the argument is always, well, you're supporting Kamala Harris because she's black. So these are black people that weren't necessarily popular candidates for black voters. And and even if we're talking about someone who's not black, let's go with like Vivek Ramaswamy, or someone who's not even running for president but is a black person that in theory we should be very proud of and should be celebrated, like Clarence Thomas. One of the things that I think that we know as black people is that all skin folk ain't kinfolk, right? So I think the argument that you're just voting for Kamala Harris because she's black and you're black, it's disingenuous, and it's intellectually an inferior argument. I made a Twitter post back when I was on Twitter. Quit Twitter, please. Shout out to Fanbase and Isaac Hayes for suing Donald Trump and making sure he stops playing his music, his dad's music. Anyway, back when I was on Twitter some years back, there was a guy named Mitt Romney that was running for president. He was running against Obama. And I think to your point, the story goes, he like made some speech behind closed doors saying, you know, there's like 40-something% of people that will never vote for me no matter what. These people are blank, 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 blank. And he like rattles off this stuff. I don't remember if that's exactly what it was, but if you look it up, this was the story. It was like kind of a scandal or something. He didn't realize he was being recorded.
I remember.
Then the audio was leaked. And I tweeted something and I said, I'm not voting for Obama because he's black. I'm voting for Obama because I'm black. And that tweet ended up getting shared a bunch of times. And I remember like Fox News reached out and like all kinds of, it was wild because it was shared so widely. And I think it reframed the conversation away from him. And I think that's basically what you were just saying right now, which is, hey, look, a lot of this stuff that comes from, you know, people online that want to, you know, extinguish this moment and the significance and the relevance of the moment is not based in anything that is intellectually on the level, right? There are people that have bad faith arguments, or maybe they think that they're good faith arguments, but they're not well researched and easily debunked, but they still have them out loud with their full chest online. Q and I have to deal with that.
That critical thinking
constantly.
skills.
Yeah. And here's the crazy part. Even if all of those things were true, Q says it better than I do, but you know, forgive me, I'm going to get this one off for you. Even if all the things about Kamala Harris were true, all the worst things, right? She's still going up against Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And even if the worst version of her was true, does that version of America beat Donald Trump's version of America for black women? And I think that still at the end of the day, even if everyone online's argument was 100% valid, which it totally isn't, but even if it was, there are some valid criticisms and we're going to talk about those. But even if they were all valid, for black women, you know, I'm not a black woman, of course, but I'm a black man and I love black women.
Yeah.
You know, that this is my reality, shaped by black women. I know the feeling that black women had underneath the Trump presidency. I was a part of the culture. I was tapped into the cultural zeitgeist during Donald Trump's presidency. Every day, everybody waking up black that pushes the culture online. That was like, what did he do today?
Yeah.
How did he embarrass us today?
Next?
Yeah, exactly. Or who's he going to insult? Or what is he going to do that's foul and out of pocket, right?
Right.
So, once we get to this point where we recognize that there are some people who are contrarian. This is again another one of Q's arguments. My bad. I'm going somewhere with it. I'm going somewhere with it. People are contrarian online for the sake of being contrarian. They have these intellectually inferior arguments that are not based in an objective shared reality, and they are just getting them off. And because some of these people have big enough platforms, their followers will look to them just because of the size of their platform and just accept what they say without questioning it. Because if they were not credible, why would they have this many followers? Not understanding that algorithms don't necessarily reward truth. Algorithms reward engagement, right?
Absolutely.
And most people don't know that. So this leads us to kind of where we are, where there are people who will try to take this moment away from black women, being able to see themselves on that stage, being able to have a moment in the sun You know, I know we all, as a people, we had Obama, but this is particularly special for Black women. And one of the biggest arguments that has kind of taken center stage in this country, in fact, Donald Trump was discussing it at the National Association of Black Journalists conference in Chicago recently, which was whether or not Kamala Harris was Black. And Tale, you are Black and Fijian, right? So I think that you're in a
How dare you?
well, you got to pick a side.
Be more than one thing.
You know, I don't know. But talk to us about how these online arguments have kind of hit you as a person who rightfully has two different like elements of your identity, both of which make you you. You would not be you if not for both of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. To your point, you know, both can be true. At the same time, I think the minority experience is the minority experience, regardless of, you know, what minority group that you belong to, right, or see yourself in. But that said, I think the question of Blackness stems from really what's happening and is a reflection of the times in terms of this DEI argument as well, right? That you're going to try, I know Brandy used the word minimize, but I like the word trivialize also.
Sure.
Right? There's just efforts to trivialize anything that is accomplished by people of color, right? And so being that it is Kamala at the highest levels, I'm not surprised that we see that at the highest levels of attacks. But I like to always say in terms of, yes, both can be true. No denying Kamala is Black. Someone like myself, obviously Black. Take some history lessons if we really want to take it there. But in terms of, you know, maneuvering and navigating life, there's something that only certain folks can relate to, and that's the Black experience. And I think that's a difference between showing up and when your foot, you know, steps foot in a room, who do they see? And I think that is the root of a lot for Kamala, like end of argument. There shouldn't even be an argument, but Kamala, you know, has a Black experience. The opposite of that, I think, Amber Rose made headlines recently, right? And you see her ruffle feathers because for whatever reason, they believe that she represents Black people, Black culture. But the argument in terms of just by how she looks, you can argue she has not had a Black experience. And I think that's a difference in terms of someone who is outside of the culture, even trying to question, you know, Kamala's identity, culture. Kamala can do whatever she wants, but we all know and can see visibly that she has had a Black experience walking through life.
It's a very interesting thing to watch the gymnastics that the other side are putting themselves through to try to marginalize and kind of take away her identity as a Black woman.
Yeah.
Not understanding that it would have been very, very convenient for her to never show up as Black, because we're very, very proud Black people, but we're not stupid. And the lift and the path and the obstacles and the opposition are far greater for Black women in this country than for any other group of people in this country. So why put on the Black woman cape to make your life harder for the sake of what and to what end?
So true.
Kamala Harris's experience, for my brothers and sisters that are listening, just the cliff notes: Oakland, California, right?
And the roughest part.
Alpha chapter, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated.
Alpha chapter.
Howard University. Right? Like, she didn't decide as a teenager that I'm going to put on my Black costume so that I could reappear as a Black woman in 40 years so that I could run for president.
Yeah.
And the audacity to run for president as a Black woman. Mr. I almost said his name. Let me stop.
Yeah.
She would not choose now to put on her Black to go against our lifetime's most racially divided country. Because of course we're not the most divided we've ever been. There was an actual civil war here before. But in our lifetime, this is the worst that it's been. And this would not be the most convenient time to show up as black. She's had a very, very well documented black woman experience for her entire life. And she's also allowed to be very proud of her mother's heritage and everything that comes along with that. She is not forced then or now to choose one or the other. But to pretend that she hasn't had a black experience and that she's not a black woman is quite silly, to say the least.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the one thing that also I find troubling and difficult to watch is the criticism of blackness within the black community. And I feel like that other side is capitalizing off of that because they see us do it. They see our community tell someone else from the community, you have a parent that's not black, so you aren't black, or you this, and nitpicking, and oh, you're a little bit too light, you're not really black, or this, and all of these things that we think we're just, kind of arguing about or having disagreements about within our culture. People are witnessing it outside of it, and they use it, they weaponize it against us. And that's like what's happening now. They're like, oh, now we have something that we can weaponize against her, because they're weaponizing it against each other every single day. And I come from the, a drop of black, you black.
Yeah.
And I feel that you should be able to choose how you want to identify. If you're of mixed race and you have, you're biracial, like, you should be able to choose. Nobody should be able to tell you how to identify. Like, that is preposterous to me, and I don't get it. I hate that that happens, because who are we to tell somebody else how they should identify?
Yeah.
What's most funny about that is those who oppose us go by that one drop rule too.
Yes.
They just ironically
Only when it's
pretend that they
convenient.
don't in opportunities
it's
like this.
literally a rule, right? I think also in terms of that duality that she holds, people show their ignorance when they're talking about her being a chameleon or code switching. It's like, well, guess what? When you're black, you kind of do that.
Yeah,
and
you're
if you're
bilingual
not black,
by-
you don't understand that. So you're not offending me telling me that she code switches. I'm like, yeah, that's
We all
We do it every day.
Yeah, we have to do that.
Yeah, that's
normal.
That's what it is. So now you guys know.
And the reality is, we're not the only group of people who code switch. Everybody does it.
Absolutely.
You think I talk like this all the time?
Right. Everybody does it. Everybody has their office voice, and I'm at home chilling with my friend's voice. That goes across for everyone.
Real quick. So for those that are listening, you obviously, we didn't record before the mics came on. But if we would have recorded before the mics came on, you would have heard the full code switch from what we was talking about. We was eating donuts and chilling and having a good time. Then to turn the mics and the cameras on and the lights and everything, and then we got right to it, right?
Yeah.
So just a funny thing to mention. Now, I want to go back to the campaign, the rally stop. You two were right behind her. There's pictures of you globally of you two smiling and waving the Kamala, the signs and the coach signs, all that sort of stuff, right behind her, as she said some things that obviously a number of things that she said made headlines, and rightfully so. But one of the things that I want to make sure that we talk about, so we're going to hit this first, is let me take our listeners into the moment. So Q and I are standing in the press box, and we have a direct line of sight to the upper level where we hear this shouting coming from. Now, where we are, we got all room echo, so we couldn't hear it super clearly. I don't know, Q has like sonic ears or something.
We could see them though.
Yeah, we could definitely see them, but
looking directly at
Q
them.
could make out what they were saying. And there was just a disturbance in the force in the upper upper deck, right? And these folks were talking about, Q explained to me, he's like, oh, they're talking about Palestine.
During her speech.
During the speech,
Yes.
right? So Tim Walz is down.
Yep.
What's his name? Mark
Kelly.
Mark Kelly was down. And all the previous speakers. Kamala Harris is up. She's maybe 3-4 minutes in. Then that noise, that disturbance. And of course, they're shouting, free Palestine. On this show, we both, Q and I, have maintained a position of support for Palestinian people, and a ceasefire, and that we oppose the genocide of the human beings on the ground there. And so I want to be very clear that is still our position. But in that moment, they brought that fight to Kamala Harris's door, and her response to it is one of the moments that made headlines. And of course, all the photos and everything, you guys are like right there behind her. So this issue has been probably one of the more divisive issues in politics in general in this country. There are people that I know, people who have been on this show, people plural, who have argued with me, not because of Kamala Harris's record for locking up 1,500 black men for marijuana, because that wasn't true.
False. Yes,
Yeah.
false.
Not because these are people that do their research. They know that, what I'm saying, like initially they were like us, they thought it was true, and then now that she's the front runner, they're like, oh shoot, I fell for the okie doke. And I'm like, don't worry, because I fell for it too. I thought that
I've
she
been trying
was.
to convince people for years.
Oh, well, see, but you know what? The crazy thing is, I should have known, because again, Dr. Westenberg was another big fan of hers. I've always been a Bernie Sanders fan. I just get a kick out of that guy. So I would have loved him no matter what. But I don't love the fact that I kind of relegated Kamala to the condemned bin for a time. Then of course, when she stepped out as BP, I'm like, okay, well shoot, that's great. Because I never hated her. I just was like, I'm not in the police. And I'm not. And I've always said that. And then I determined that, okay, nobody's going to be perfect for any job unless it's me doing the job, right? So I can't require perfection of her based on my definition of it. So if I meet her where she is, I accept that she did what she thought was the right thing, given all of the things that she had learned. You start to kind of reframe the story of this human being, not just a political option, but indeed a black woman who's on a black woman's journey to try to make the changes in the broken system that she's seen her people suffer under, right? And so...
And people evolve.
Yeah, exactly.
With experience.
Exactly. I'm certainly one of them.
Like, as you go through life and have different experiences, you evolve. Sometimes your views change. Sometimes you think of ways you could have done something better, and you try to be better at it or do better by it. And a lot of things have changed in the world and in America since back then. That are a lot more... well, I guess they've always been happening. We just are bombarded by it. Like, we see it constantly all the time. So, and I'm sure that has attributed to some of the ways in which she has decided to move forward.
So this is where this lands us, because again, these people that, again, are friends of the show, been on the show, both shows that we do, will still say it's not because of this or that or the other. Outside of those things, now that I know what the what is with Kamala Harris, she's a fantastic candidate, certainly better than the alternative, right?
Except for...
But on this one issue of Palestine, this administration is complicit in genocide. And I've sat with, and I've fellowshipped with, and I've prayed with, or these are my people that are being wiped from the face of the earth because of the support that the United States has offered to Israel to continue their campaign. And, in a lot of people's opinions, Israel is indeed a terrorist state because of these actions. And not just people in Palestine, people around the world feel that way. So it makes sense that there would be an interruption of the speech. That comes with the territory, and people deserve to be heard, and I wasn't mad at that. But you were there, and you were in that moment, and now you're forever married to that moment, in a manner of speaking, because those photos, like if people look you up on the internet, those photos, you and her talking about that, right?
Yeah.
I want you to kind of take our listeners into, not only into that moment, but into kind of your feelings about that divide, and how maybe you might feel conflicted about it, or maybe, you know, I don't know. I have a tough time with it myself, mm-hmm. and I know that Q and I, we talk about this quite a bit, but this, we want to make sure that we get Black women, you two specifically, because you're the ones that we like, so we'd like for you to
what
that sounded crazy.
Well, I mean, here, you know, we know and like, we like it.
What you meant.
Yeah, well, sorry.
Let me follow my brother up before we get canceled by everybody.
Well, you know what I meant.
Yes,
yeah,
I know
we know
what
you.
you meant.
Yeah, sorry.
You have to understand, you're not just talking to them.
Yeah, well,
you have listeners.
Yes, indeed.
Because you're the two that we like is crazy.
Yeah, sorry.
And you know, people like to chop and screw sound bites and stuff.
Yeah, but what I mean is, you know, for this type of conversation in this platform,
right.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. So, so why don't we start with you, Talay?
Yeah.
Talk us through kind of where a moment like that takes you, your feelings, and what it means to be you in that moment behind Kamala Harris, effectually in support of her in her campaign in its entirety.
Yeah. I think for me it's layered, right? From a audience member, but also soror and Black women. I definitely started to get nervous. Like, you're feeling for her. It's rude. Now, I will say, we can't hear from our perspective that day. Had no idea even what was happening. Obviously, we were aware that we were being filmed, in the background. So I think there's added pressure than others in the arena that day, mm-hmm. to be able to look and see what's going on. Yeah. So I couldn't tell that it was heckling. I thought it was a disturbance. It could have been like, when a fight happens and you're at a sports game, like, you don't know what's taking place. So we didn't have that perspective like you all. And I know she had recently just made an appearance, and there was heckling there as well. And so my mind automatically went to, these folks are so rude. I can't believe, and then we had people by us, just full transparency for those who didn't see this, right? There's folks in our row mad that there's a disturbance, yelling. And so now I'm like, I think I was pinching Brandy, because I'm like, I'm trying to smile and this person is yelling, and then there's a disturbance, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh. But that said, so it was more of a distraction, and just trying to understand just how to personally navigate the situation, knowing that you're on TV, honestly. But I think when she addressed it, I felt that she did what was necessary. Even if it was just like a PR 101 tactic, it was, well executed to just address it, mm-hmm. and calm that situation down. On the topic itself, I agree with your stance. I do think that there's genocide taking place that needs to be resolved. I think that there's hypocrisy, taking place in terms of funding, right, providing weapons, and then going ceasefire. But at the same time, I try to give grace and also understanding to those in the highest rankings and holding the highest positions, because at the end of the day, and I'm sure people might disagree, I don't know what's going on in those secret meetings, and I can tell you why certain things are done, but I don't think that it's a far stretch to think that there are some probably powers that be and secrets at the highest level that we have that we're not privy to, that have to factor into a lot of the decision making. Mm-hmm. So they have to balance that and be very careful, right? And that's what politics is all day long anyways. But so I try to just kind of give grace and understand, like, yes, this is what the people want, but at the same time, who knows the impact of some of these things that we think makes absolutely common sense should happen. But there's some crazy folks out there, rulers included. So that's my stance on the whole, effort in general.
Okay. So, Brandy, I'm going to ask you a slightly different version of that question.
Okay.
Might be a little more challenging, but we just want your thoughts because, again, this is something that briefly before we get there, one of the people, friends of the show that I was talking to about Kamala Harris, she is a white woman who is like an ally to, marginalized people, people who have been kind of relegated to the margins of society. And she knows and understands that, either Kamala Harris is going to be the president or Donald Trump is going to be the president. This is a point that was well made by Q many times on the show. In fact, the reason that she had to tell me that is because Q made the point on the show, and she listens to the show, of course. She recognizes, based on her sensibilities, that Donald Trump is not a good leader, period, and she would never vote for Donald Trump.
She's a good person.
There you go. She also recognizes that if she doesn't vote, period, that is effectually a vote for Donald Trump, right? And the only issue that she has with Kamala Harris is a person that can do the job, right? She doesn't need to be overly excited because she's super duper anti-police. She's super duper anti like a lot of stuff that most all politicians rather stand on. But she also recognizes this is a democracy, and the only way to engage and to shape the society in which you live is to vote. So she feels compelled to vote, right? Where she lands is, okay, if I vote for Kamala Harris, it means Donald Trump doesn't get into office. And I don't have anything that makes me excited about it because of this Palestine issue, other than the fact that this would be a moment in history, a historical moment for black women. And she's super duper like, yo, black women, let's make sure that we share this white privilege with black women. She buys black owned. She's like one of them people, like goes to the nth degree to make sure that she's right with the universe before her time is up, right? I like people like that. She would jump down my throat if I did not mention that after this rally, the U.S. announced a $20 billion weapons transfer to Israel so that they can continue to defend themselves. This is probably how it will be framed. And this on the heels of what Kamala Harris said on the stage does make for a really complicated emotional position when you offer your support, when you offer your vote. Now, again, she maintains that for black women, this moment is unequaled. And so there's the good. And then she also maintains, I just saw them bundle a baby's body and the baby's eyes were still open. And you didn't realize until a few moments after that the baby wasn't alive because the baby wasn't blinking. And I saw that happen. And that's not the only baby. There's tens of thousands of them that are obliterated from the face of the earth because of this $20 billion weapons. And this is not the first 20 billion, right?
Yeah.
So, we won't dig too much deeper than this because I know that that's a lot, and I know that you don't have her answers.
I have something to say though.
No. But I wanted just to kind of get your thoughts of how maybe you reconcile that, or where you are emotionally with it, or wherever your thoughts take you. Just give us some insight into what it feels to be a black woman at that intersection.
So I would say that I do like how she addressed Palestine at the rally, because it was just like a very straightforward. She let it be known like, hey, I am actively in negotiations for a ceasefire. And just knowing a little bit what I've known based on like research and military people, you know, it's with a ceasefire with a country that is one of our allies is a very difficult situation, because they're our allies in case somebody tries to come and do that to us. So it's a very tough situation to be in, because you know, unfortunately we have to see this terror that's happening over there, and there's nothing we can do about it. Like, you know, us as citizens, there's nothing we can do about it, and then we have to watch our government, you know, continue to treat them like allies because they're one of our allies. And the one thing I can say is I do feel like this administration has been more transparent than some previous administrations, where we're seeing we're seeing more about what's being sent where, but you know, there's more discussion about it. Where I feel like years previously, like we didn't really have much info to go on, and there's been a lot more funding and, you know, and terrible things happening, but we're not receiving the information. So although it's almost like the transparency for me is like, okay, this is what we're working with. So that's what's good for me, is seeing what we're actually working with, as opposed to, you know, there's still going to be secrets, obviously. We can't know everything, but we have this information to base it off of. And then back to kind of the theme of even talking about anything election related is, what would you think Trump would do with regards to this situation? And in my heart of hearts, it would be significantly less than this current administration and Vice President Kamala future administration. Okay. So it's me personally, I'm sitting here like, Trump is like homies with Putin. Like, that's scary to me. Like, he's committing treason, I know, daily. I mean, he already did it once, like, publicly, and we're still having conversation. Like, it's crazy that we even have to talk about this, because he committed treason publicly on January 6th. And like, so anyone who...
And he also refers to those countries, like a lot of Middle Eastern countries, as S-hole countries. So I wouldn't imagine that he would
do
have
anything
a soft place in his heart for Palestine.
No, absolutely not.
Continue.
And with Netanyahu, when he was in office, he did take a big stance, right, in declaring Jerusalem, you know, as capital, and those sorts of movements in support of Israel too. So I think that you're right in terms of the allyship.
It's, you know, and it always goes back to, do you really think that Trump is capable of negotiating anything of substance? Like, you think he would be better at negotiating this ceasefire or making it happen, or have any type of, I think where also her having heritage from another country comes into play. Like, she has a whole family that could potentially understand what that might be like, you know, like, that aren't American, who can, where she could think about, like, something like this could happen to my family, or, you know, my mom's side of the family at, you know, any given time, or, you know. So I personally wouldn't trust him to negotiate anything, and I don't think that would be top priority for him. He actually has gone down a list of things that are top priority for him, and it is not that.
There's an interesting thing that happens to our country specifically at times like these, because a lot of people are not very involved with the political process until right now.
Right.
Right. The president's about to be elected. Okay, let's get busy. The problem is, you probably shouldn't wait until then.
Like, you've missed the important elections.
We are, for the entirety of our lives, a two-party country. We've had incredible independent candidates with incredible progressive ideas. Our country is not set up in a way that they can be successful no matter what.
Yeah.
One of our main parties will squash them, co-opt them, and continue to move forward. So the first thing that we need to understand collectively is this is a binary choice. Donald Trump's going to be the president, or Kamala Harris is going to be the president. Now, our current president, folks, is not Kamala Harris. That's important to say out loud again.
Right.
She does not have legislative authority
Right.
I was thinking the
per
same thing.
the U.S. Constitution that they pretend is so important to them. Now, our current president has a foreign policy and foreign affairs reputation. He has openly said, I watched it, that he is a Zionist. So people who have decided that there is nothing I can do that will compel me to vote for that man, especially our Palestinian brothers and sisters, when he says that out of his mouth,
What can you say?
Yeah.
Understand.
I can't compel you to do so. I, in that case, still have to vote for him because I live here. And the outcomes for me and my children are far worse under the other candidate.
Right.
Because
in
what
that
Ram
case,
said, we're black.
I understand how you feel. With regard to our current vice president and our former president, because he has a foreign policy and foreign affairs reputation as well. As you said, he cozies up to dictators. To this day, congratulates them on the great work that they're doing, even those who are flagrantly anti-American.
Yeah.
And working against
America.
our
And
interests.
working against the best interest of Americans today. Not they used to when they grew some progression and got better. No. Our current enemies, he cozies up to and praises them, right? Our vice president doesn't have a foreign policy reputation because she's never been the president. She's never acted in a capacity where she'd have an opinion or could bring forth legislation that would have any impact on how our country operates. Now, what I've noticed is that our former president, who is now running again, has said that he would like for the state of Israel to finish the job. Our current vice president has said that she would like a ceasefire.
Right.
These are not hard decisions, people.
Right.
We find an idealistic way to make them difficult, but they're not.
Right.
And asking black people specifically, in the name of our Palestinian brothers and sisters, to stand by and watch Donald Trump be elected again is too large of an ask.
Yeah.
And it is taking our plight as nothing, marginalizing what we have to live through in the name of yours. As we stand, and I'll say Ramses and I specifically, at times where it could have got really, really difficult for us professionally, we stood up and gave platform to our brothers and sisters that are going through that terrible, terrible genocide of their people on the other side of the world. So to pretend that we cannot stand for you while also standing for ourselves is not fair.
Right.
But we have to also stop conflating issues and pretending that they're the same. Vice President Harris can urge and beg and campaign for all the things that she wants to, except her boss, if he does not share those same ideas, can do whatever he wants, and there's nothing that she can do, and people need to start acknowledging that. She is not the person in charge right now. She is spending a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of resources trying to be. And I think that things are better off for everyone in the event that she's successful in November.
You see why they pay him the big bucks? Well, here's what I want to do. I want to invite everyone who has tuned into this conversation to check us out on Civic Cypher, because we are going to have another conversation with both of you. And I think that another takeaway that I want people to leave this conversation with is that these sort of online attacks, because we spent a lot of time talking about that, these attacks on Kamala Harris. There's a guy named, I don't even want to say his name, but he's a guy on social media, and we follow him for some reason. And we wouldn't follow him unless he was cool. And he's like going to such great lengths to cast Kamala Harris in some sort of like demonic, foul light. And he's a black man.
Oh, I can't wait to hear who this person is.
Yeah, man, I'll show you. I don't want to bring any attention to him, but you know, it's like heartbreaking because again, all of the things that he's saying are so easily debunked. And I know that just because something is debunked doesn't mean that people are going to accept it, because then they're going to be like, well, of course they're going to say that. It's not, you know, people they like their realities, and that's just kind of what it is. But it's just particularly hurtful when it comes to like black men doing this over a black woman, and black men then coming after black women for being excited about a black woman being in charge, right? And so this is another reason why, because this show was conceived by Q before we even went to that rally. He wanted us to have this conversation, and it just ended up working out where we could do this show with people that we liked and know. You know, I'd like to go back to what I said earlier, like that's what I meant, you know what I mean? I'm sorry.
I think the point that you were trying to make, as you now said, like again, more importantly, people that we know and that we care about.
That's what I'm trying to say.
People that we like, make it sound like we don't like nobody else. And that is not what he's trying to say.
But again, people who are qualified, people that we're comfortable having conversation with, people that are comfortable having conversation with, this is a much more friendly conversation than and a more natural exchange than we have with a lot of folks, because we're getting acquainted on the fly. Where with you know my children, you know what I mean? Like, you come support my businesses, I support the things that you do. We know each other in real life, and your feelings. Not only are you prominently positioned to really speak to this moment, but your feelings give insight into what it means to be again at that intersection. And we got your phone number, so we can like call and be like, hey, you want to do the show? So it's just a special exchange. I appreciate you both taking the time to talk with us. Before we let you go, if you guys have any sort of social media that you want people to follow, just to kind of catch up with you, any websites you want people to do, any endeavors you want folks to support, maybe some AKA stuff if people want to get involved in supporting AKAs, anything like that, just leave people with it. Why don't we start with you, Tulay?
Well, first, let me just say thank you, Q, thank you, Ramses, for having us tonight. You shared a lot about our histories and our relationship, but, you know, right back at you in terms of authenticity and just being genuinely good people, doing what's right as best as you can. I'm so proud of the both of you and really appreciate you for having us tonight.
Who else could say that?
And bringing...
Who else could say that? Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. And bringing...
Sorry.
Who else could say that? I'm thinking, yes, I flash back to like all kinds of things, you know, back in the day. But it is, you know, not often when folks say, well, let's hear that black female perspective.
You won't get it here.
And that's what I appreciate. A lot of people think they know it, right? Who are outside of it. So thank you. Let's see, Instagram handles. You know, support Coily Clips, my new business endeavor.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
The first children's hair accessory for little girls with coils and curls.
Okay.
What's on the market now is straight hair. So there's a gap that I'm working to address, inspired by my daughter.
Okay.
And exclusive announcement, I am bringing back the black box.
Okay, I remember that.
A past endeavor too. So you can find that on Instagram at theblackbox.us and at coily.clips. And if you want to follow me at Taleezy, it's a nickname granted to me
from back in the day.
From Brandy.
Yeah.
Brandy is the Taleezy.
Yeah, that was your AOL name, wasn't it? Like back in the day.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, it was Taleezy. It was all.
All right.
Taleezy for sheezy.
All day. Talk to him. All right, Brandy, hit us with what you got.
Well, yeah, I echo what Tulay said. I mean, I feel like I tell y'all I'm proud of y'all like every other week.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like y'all doing that.
It's made me smile every time you've ever said it.
Sure.
And sometimes you say it not knowing that the good thing we heard that day was you saying that.
Yeah.
Aww.
The response that we get, people don't realize, is almost 98% negative.
Sure.
The algorithm feeds us to those who kind of hate what we're doing. So we get a lot of, we'll get, you know, a post that'll have 700 likes will have 800 comments, and one of them will be a thumbs up. 799 of them will be monkey and every other thing that you can
People
be called.
think I have a wig and my beard is fake and like.
You know, I do be seeing some of the comments, and I'd be like, "Why are they even here?" Like,
much time.
It's just interesting, but
So sometimes I love you and I'm proud of you, bro. Like,
goes a long
you guys
way.
are just saying what you've always said to us.
Yes.
yeah,
But it'll be on a day where the only thing that we got that was like that was from you. So you don't even know the impact that you have just being who you are to us. It's not something special that you're doing. You're just being you. But it rings very, very loud and very, very special to us.
yeah. No, I've ever since like day one when you all started this, I was like, yeah. I was very excited about it. I've been. It's been amazing to watch the platform like grow, to see you guys like going places. I mean, shoot, QB in other countries, civic ciphering, you know. So
It's the Scythe life.
you know, so it's just amazing to see, and you know, and spreading like great messages and having dialogue amongst different people, like diverse groups of people. Like you guys, you know, there's been all kinds of different people on your show. There's all different kinds of people that support your show, who watch and listen, and so it's just amazing that you guys created this platform and continue to move it forward with you know, engaging the people and mobilizing the people to do, you know, what's right, whenever we need to be mobilized to do what's right. So no, thank you for having me here as well. Like, it was great, you know, seeing y'all across the rally. It was great being there. Like, we talked about like a lot of the nuances, but like, honestly, everyone asked like, oh my gosh, how was it? And I'm just like, amazing. And you can't even, it's hard to put it into the exact words, because it was mostly a feeling that you got being there and seeing how excited people were, real people, not, I don't know, fake people that they keep
AI.
saying. Yeah, like
we were there. Everybody was there too.
There's like real life people that weren't.
It was cracking.
Like
It was yanking in
stand-ins
there.
or like weren't paid to be
cracking.
there.
Yanking.
And there's people from all different types of background. There was natives and people from LGBTQ community.
Yeah.
LGBTQ
LGBTQIA
community.
plus. Yeah.
And Latinos and blacks and children
Quack
and
folks.
Yeah. And like
everybody. Republicans. Talk to them.
Like, it was crazy, and everybody was
legislators,
just right.
Lawmakers,
vote
yeah.
Republican.
It was so
Republican
like,
politicians.
it just opened my eyes. Like, I was excited before, but when I went to that rally, I was like, okay, like, we're in this and we're all in this together, and we're going to make a change in America. That we all could feel safe here. We don't have to, you know, we're always gonna have to worry about the children and everything, but like, we could worry significantly less.
And we're not going back.
We're not going
That's
back.
the message. Yeah.
Say that.
That's the
We're
message.
not going back. Like, we, you know, our ancestors like fought so hard for us to be in the position that we're in, and like, I would be darned if we went anywhere near back to where they brought us up from. So, you know, happy to be the energy was amazing. I almost didn't go because work stuff, and then I was just like, nope, I'm gonna just go. And I'm so glad that I did, because there's nothing no one could ever tell me or reflect to me about being there that would be better than actually experiencing that. So we were FaceTiming people. I was like FaceTiming every
I had my
all my
grandma
closest friends. My
on
nana.
FaceTime,
My
yeah.
nana was like, "Yeah, girl."
I tried to
And
FaceTime my mom. I couldn't get no
the service was really bad. So the fact that I was able to get through 4 FaceTimes like shows you how determined I was. I was like, "Look, everybody's gonna be here, and in this moment, especially my nana, because she's 80. She'll be 82 next month, and I'm like, you know, I'm very much enjoying this time with her, experiencing all of this, and like, because she comes from a generation that never expected Obama to happen, let alone
Black
Kamala
female.
to be, you know, even in the running, even vice president or even in the running for president. So like, that's been an amazing experience too. So the first person I dialed up, I was like, Nana, we're in here.
When your Nana and my mom got to the age of being able to vote, it was illegal.
Right. Yeah.
So imagine that.
Yeah.
There's a black woman in the position to sit in the highest seat in this land. That's a big deal.
Absolutely.
Before we go, I want you to bring our listeners into your choice of outfit in this moment, because
Oh, they can't see
this
it.
is really like the colors. I want just
Oh, yeah.
describe
I don't know
it,
if they
because
can
you know
see
this.
it.
No,
Well, yeah,
a lot of people.
you guys can't really see it. I don't know, but it says.
A lot of people only listen.
Yeah. And so
Oh, okay. So it says Shirley ran so that Kamala could win. Sorry, Shirley ran so that Kamala could win.
Okay, now it's a green shirt
Yes.
with white letters, but the word Kamala is in pink, so
Yes.
it's pink and green. So you know, talk about it.
Oh,
Shirley,
yeah,
you
this
know.
is just so me personally, not my sorority, could support our lovely SOR Kamala Harris, while also, you know, just, you know, I got more shirts. I could tell you. I'm gonna tell you where I got the shirt from too in a minute.
Yeah, please.
But I really want to wear things like this so that I can trigger people in their mind, like regardless of who they decide to vote for. I just want everybody to vote, and I want all those people like, oh, that I'm not gonna vote, like my vote doesn't matter. And that's not true. I want everybody to vote. I want it to be top of mind. So like for the next, where are we at? Like 87 days, 86 days?
Somewhere in
What's the count?
Somewhere in
It was
there.
87
Yeah,
that night
80
us-
something.
Yeah,
80 something days. I want everyone, I want voting to be at top of mind for everyone.
Okay.
Everybody,
So-
make sure you're registered too.
Yes.
Please.
And if you have kids that are in college or you are a college student, make sure you got your absentee ballot. So it can be mailed to you so you can vote.
I want to take a quick moment, because for those that don't know who Shirley is, Shirley ran so that Kamala could win. Shirley Chisholm is the first woman who ran for president in this country, viable presidential candidate in this country, and she actually made noise like she was her, and so the significance of that shirt is not lost on me, and now it won't be lost on our listeners, even those who can't see what we're actually talking about. Go ahead and shout out the person who made the shirts, and then
I'm trying to get the exact.
Yes. Well, while Brandy is pulling that up, I do want to shout out a couple people, Sor Whitney Daniels, who helped get us into the seats that day, because it's made such a big impact. You know, just in core memory for sure. My shirt of choice that night was also pink and green, and it read, "My black job is voting."
Yes, I saw that.
That's
Yes.
a fact.
So had to you know, just lay that out there, because we do have a job coming up to fulfill. So,
And both shirts were purchased from our SOR, Jennifer's company. And the company is God Ain't Petty, But I Am.
I love it.
So if you spell that out, so God Ain't Petty, But I Am .com, and you can find them on Instagram as well. But she has a lot of election driven shirts, mugs, all sorts of paraphernalia. So yeah, definitely.
paraphernalia is an AKA term, by the
Well,
way.
it's anything. Paraphernalia is paraphernalia could be this. It could be,
I'm just making sure. For
like
Yeah,
paraphernalia, there could be drug paraphernalia.
That's
You
what
know,
I'm
like
saying.
there's a lot of paraphernalias.
It's a divine.
You know,
Well, I tell you what.
swag. Okay, there's a lot of election swag.
Yeah, and once again, that's God Ain't Petty, But I Am. Again, thank
That's the
you,
coldest website of all time.
Brandy Irvin, to Hornback, for taking the time to come up on the show. have this conversation with us and kind of inject some joy into some of the heavier conversations that we tend to have, because we don't often get to laugh on this show. Black Girl Magic is definitely alive in the studio in this conversation and on this
Everybody wants a
episode.
little sprinkle.
Listen, man, we had to get our sprinkle today. And I ain't talking about the donuts we ate earlier. So as
sprinkles.
yeah, I did. Yeah. So obviously, we appreciate you listening. If you have any thoughts, any feedback, anything you want to share, you can do so using the red microphone talkback feature on the iHeartRadio app. You can find me on all social media at Ramses Ja.
I am Q Ward on all socials as well.
And until next time, y'all.
Peace.
This has been a production of the Black Information Network. Today's show is produced by Chris Thompson. Have some thoughts you'd like to share? Use the red microphone talkback feature on the iHeartRadio app. While you're there, be sure to hit subscribe and download all of our episodes. I am your host, Ramses Ja, on all social media. Join us tomorrow as we share our news with our voice, from our perspective, right here on the Black Information Network Daily Podcast.